Okay, guys, we're here and about to record. CJ's getting the lipstick straight. I think I'm good. Marcus is successful. His makeup's perfect. Y'all see where it was. Y'all saw that. Hey guys, it's Kara, the career cheerleader. You know why I'm here. We're here because it's time for another Red Table Talk RVA exclusive. And today we got some big news, man. We are filming for Red Table Talk. I got a whole slew of guests, so I'm going to get their take on what's going on and just how we're feeling. Hello, Privilege. It's me, Chelsea. So we've all watched the documentary, and we're going to just give a little feedback on Red Table Talk. But this is the uncut. Just what was your original take on just what you saw, how you feel about white privilege? How do you feel?
Well, I'll start. I was pleasantly surprised that somebody white decided to tackle it. I've always said that this problem is a problem that would be best suited tackled by someone white, because those of us who are black who know and understand the problem will come off as whiners to the folks who really need to make the change. Someone like Chelsea to expose herself this way was commendable, because the reality is anybody who has been seen in history promoting or attempting to help black people as a whole usually ends up with some sort of negative consequences behind it.
Absolutely. It's a necessary topic. Regina, how'd you feel?
I agree with what he said, but I also feel as though, are you doing it to actually make a change, or are you doing it because black is in right now? Everyone is talking about, Black Lives Matter and the police and all of that. So what reason were you really doing it for? Because in watching the documentary, like, she really didn't open up in places that she should have. Like he said, the conversation needs to be with them, with her white counterparts. And when she had the opportunity to open up about that, she didn't. She let a lot of comments just, go. That's where we need the most information. Why do they feel that way? Which structure their thought process on how they feel about us? Why do they think it's okay that they let us into schools? Why did he believe that voting was a privilege?
Right.
Those were the things that I wanted to hear them open up about, because until we find out why, then we can't go anywhere.
Right.
We can't change their thought of thinking if we don't know where it comes from.
It could feel insensitive, like, are you just doing, like you said, are you just doing this because black is in? Or what was your awakening moment that said, I can't believe this is still going on? Hey, how'd you feel?
Well, I can appreciate Chelsea, a white woman, using her privilege to spread awareness about white privilege. I sort of have the sentiment that, again, white people choose their ignorance. They choose to ignore. They choose to just not acknowledge racism and white privilege as a direct benefit of racism. I was a lot shocked and appalled, not so much shocked, but just like a disdain for the white female Republicans. I think one of them actually had the audacity to state that a statement like we let them into school, and I'm like, who and where?
Who is they? Right. What school? I definitely understand that perspective. Definitely.
Right, because affirmative action no longer exists. Now they've coined the term equal opportunity, and but still, that no black person necessarily just has the inherent right to a higher education, and it's not just easy, nor is it affordable.
Right.
So it was a lot. I like Tim Wise. I have a lot of respect for people like Tim Wise and Jane,
who says it how they are, says it how it is. I think that's what we missed from Chelsea, and I don't know if it's because she's just waking up, but if you know it's an issue, talk matter of fact about it. Hey, we're denying these people access to these things. Versus, you think it's happening? No, it's fake news. Okay. It's not fake news. Okay, it's
I was
not.
just gonna say that it's not fake news, but also what Tim Wise has done is taken the time to educate himself. Obviously,
Absolutely.
instead of just coming to ask Black people, what is the problem? How do you feel? Why don't you take the time and learn your history?
Absolutely.
What you did.
Especially if you're an American, because if you're an American and a native to this, born in this country, as the four of us are, we know the history.
Right.
So there is no excuse for your ignorance. I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
Well,
No, it's cognitive dissonance, and they know.
Yes.
And oftentimes, the thing I want to share, I'm glad you brought up Tim Wise about him, because I followed him, I've studied him a little bit, and white folks who don't believe or understand or accept or receive white privilege looks at Tim Wise how we look at Diamond and Silk. You know, those sisters who are rocking
Support
with Donald
Trump.
Trump.
Yes.
You know, and many of us will use the most vile terms to describe our disdain for them. I'm not one to do that, but we all know the people who will do that.
Right.
You know, based upon how we support folks who may not be in line with who we feel we should be supporting. So having said that, this is how they look at Tim Wise.
Hey, Red Table Talk. I'm Cara.
I'm Krishetta.
I'm Marcus J.
I'm Rakita.
Just finished rapping with Jada, and there are some things that we wanted to say that we didn't get on camera. So, what are some points you guys wanted to say?
Well, I just wanted to point out the group of Republican women just wanted to make the point that white women have a history of being docile, complacent, and silent on issues that involve oppression, racism, abuse, violence for Black people, Black women, and Black men. Historically, they have imparted themselves in issues that they can benefit from. A few examples of those are the women's right to vote and the civil rights movement that didn't become important to them until they realized they didn't have the right to vote. And then it became a collective issue. Another historic example is the domestic violence movement. Two Black women started that movement, and then white women came in and sort of inserted themselves and attempted to take it over. And I just like to lastly say that as mothers, as women, these issues that are alive and well, not just racism but sexism, need to be addressed by all women, not just Black women.
First of all, thank you all for watching, and thank you to my sisters for inviting me to be here. One of the main things that I wanted to kind of share is basically just history. You know, we live in 2019. There's a documentary on right now in podcast form with the New York Times called 1619. And basically what it chronicles is our experience as displaced Africans here in America, Black people, taking us through the history from 1619 to the present. That's 400 years. So if you look at that 400 years and you take us to the 1860s when we were allegedly emancipated, and then another 100 years when that emancipation wasn't treated as if it was there. Basically, there was more discrimination. We're basically talking about the last 50 years of legislated and supposedly social freedoms in this country that many of us don't feel. My dad is in his late 70s. He's a veteran, Vietnam era, who remembers coming home and having to go to the back of buildings and having to drink from whites only fountains. And this is the history that we have as Africans misplaced here in America, as Black folk. And so it's very frustrating when we have conversations about white privilege, when we're talking to people who've benefited from, if you want to really just look at it from another perspective, okay, 350 year head start instead of 400. And so this is why this conversation is so important. And this is why, in my opinion, it should be led by a white person, because Black people, many of us already know this. And we've already shared these things with one another. It's like preaching to the choir. At the end of the day, you need someone new to come in that choir so that they can take that message outside. And so the last point that I wanted to make is we're talking about education, which we haven't. One thing that I will share about education, it's very important to have black teachers and people that represent you in positions that are actually aiding the youth. We know that the teaching profession is a profession that's dominated by white women who are now legislating black men and black women on how to teach and talk to black children. So think about that. It's imperative that we understand who we are in this country and who we're sharing this country with. That's why this conversation is very important. So thank you.
I want to touch on the Republican women in the video. The fact that the lady said, we let them into schools. Who are the we? We all live in this country. We all benefit from different things in this country. But the fact that she said we shows that privilege that she has. And I'm tired of the fact that we don't see it. It's not that they don't see it. They ignore the fact because they enjoy the privilege. I'd rather for you to tell me that than to tell me you don't see it. It's too much going on in America, where we live, where we all live, that you just ignore, you just don't see it in some shape, form, or fashion. Whether you see it on a daily basis, whether you see it every now and then. But if you look at history, we were taught basically the same history in school. I think we all learned, even my children, the same history in school. So just base it off of the history you were taught. Slaves, we were slaves, and the slave owners were white. We went through Jim Crow and other eras of segregation. Just based off that, were you paying attention, or did you not care? Like Marcus said, it should be led by a white person. This is white privilege. I don't know what white privilege feels like. What I do know about white privilege is that it has oppressed my people. That's what I do know. But I don't know how y'all feel because y'all get white privilege. I don't know how that feels to walk in somewhere and just know you're safe. You know, we don't know that. So explain to me, why do you choose to ignore the fact that it has oppressed people, and why do you choose not to help? Because your white privilege isn't going anywhere. You're white, and it has nothing to do with money. It's just the fact that you're white. You can't change that. But why don't you change how you approach the issues of minorities that it is putting, well, some of us, a foot on our necks in this country?
Absolutely agree with that. Thank y'all so much. I wanted to add, it's just that I don't think Chelsea has to go outside of her current neighborhood, her current circle, to find out what that oppression looks like or what that privilege looks like. In the documentary, she had her driver who was African American. He was a black male. Talk to him. I mean, it's really not outside of you. You don't have to go to an open mic or another forum to really see the impact. Ask the people closest to you, and ask the people in the places of privilege, the ones that you feel like can receive the message, what can we do to change it? Because the reality is, maybe she didn't ask her circle because they don't want to change. They like where they're at. But if you're in the circle and you want to change, maybe it can ignite them to want to change. So I feel like she should use that power in her immediate setting. You don't have to leave your immediate circle. Hey, but listen, open forum now. Let's do a round robin. What else do we want to add?
Well, just one thing that I did want to touch on is how white folks, think that they're being politically correct when they use the term people or persons of color, which I find extremely offensive because it does not specify or identify who you are speaking of. And while you may be trying to be culturally competent or culturally sensitive, I really just feel that it's another way to separate us versus them. Everybody white versus non-white people. Instead of, again, white people taking the time to just say, we're talking about black folks, or we're talking about Latino folks, or we're talking about Asian folks. And so I think it's dismissive, and I find it offensive. And I don't think it's politically correct, and I do not prefer that term. Just be specific, and who are you speaking to?
I wanted to make a point about imagery. I was having a conversation with a white female friend of mine a long time ago. We were talking about religion and Jesus, and we talked about how biblically Jesus is a black man. He just is. He looks more like Saddam Hussein than he does Caesar Borgia. But we were talking about this, and she was saying that it's not a big deal. And I replied to her, it's not a big deal because Jesus looks like you. Jesus looks like you and your family. And so to me, if I am to pray to this deity that is all-knowing and higher than anything else, and that deity looks like you, and you're oppressing me, that's an example of white privilege. You have the privilege of being Jesus, and the privilege of being Santa Claus, and the privilege of being all of these images, and you also have the privilege of not having to worry about what it feels like not to have images that look like you. So just kind of think about that. Don't be so offended when someone black or someone of another culture other than yours is a little pissed off about it, because some of us are, and some of us are okay telling you.
Right. Or did they say something that makes you feel uncomfortable?
Yeah.
Because we've been uncomfortable for a long time.
All the time.
I remember growing up and couldn't find a black baby anywhere. Little baby, little toy.
I would ask them if they. I would ask, and then this is just for honest white folk who want to know, who want to be a part of the solution, and I don't want any of the viewers to take my fierceness in discussing this as a slight towards anybody, because I'm going to treat everybody with respect. I call everybody brother and sister. That's how I am. But just think about what it must feel like to always have to code switch. Think about what it must feel like when someone says code switch and you don't know what it means.
Yeah.
So just think about that if you want to be a part of the conversation, if you want to be helpful, this is how you're helpful. Avoid the cognitive dissonance, and just keep that in mind.
To piggyback off of what Cara said, what she was saying, in your circle, if you are in that circle and they don't want to change, what do you do? Are you going to continue to associate yourself with the people that you are saying now, hey, I'm not one of you anymore, I don't feel that way? So they continue to feel that way. Do you remove yourself? Are you going to remove yourself from the circle? Or are you going to continue to be in that circle? Because that's a hard battle if that is your immediate circle, who you see every single day, who you have conversations with, birthday parties, cookouts, children, graduations or whatever, and they're going to talk about it because they are okay with it. This is their life. They're okay. They don't care that you are, you said, now I feel that it's wrong, because first of all, you benefit from it.
Right.
So, and so do they. So what are you going to do now? And this is not about what are you going to do to help us or to help Latinos or Mexicans or whoever of another race other than white. What are you going to do to help move yourself from that perspective? You still have to think about that, and it's hard, even in day-to-day life. When I feel that you're not aligning with me and what I want to do, I have to remove myself from you, because I can't get to where I'm going if you're not aligned with that.
Right.
So, that's kind of what I want to know, if we want to put it with the documentary with Chelsea. If these people in your circle are not with this, or not willing to even acknowledge or change or try to change, let's say try, because it's a process.
It is.
What are you going to do? Are you going to still associate with them, or are you going to remove yourself and associate yourself with people who are aligned with what you're doing now?
Right. And that's kind of a conversation, like, everybody doesn't grow at the same rate, right? But you want to be around people who are willing to grow, and not just talking about the comfortable things or the things that we all agree with or the things that we all see the commonality on it. I think it's just a fine line, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
But sometimes you got to move on with the people who get it, because the reality is it's going to be some folks that ain't going to get it, and they're going to have to get left.
Everybody can't go to the next level, right?
Everybody can't go.
You don't have to agree on everything.
Right.
You can have friends where we all sat here, we all did not agree on everything. But you learn through people that, I learned the most. I may not agree with what you're saying, but as I listen, I could be like, okay, I can understand that.
I see your perspective.
I see your perspective.
Right.
But we know that this is wrong. The way that people are moving is wrong.
Right.
It is oppressing other people. That's the problem.
You gotta respect it. So if you don't respect my experience, then you're not gonna be able to empathize with what I go through.
Absolutely.
So that's why you get, if we go back to Chelsea's documentary, and we all spoke of the four white women who were talking and how they just didn't understand nor want to acknowledge the existence of white privilege. And they were, they're like campaign managers for the Republican Party, and these are people who clearly are intelligent people who missed this.
Did not see it. Just could not. Baffled. I was baffled. I just could not. We let them in school. I just can't.
Or they didn't want to see it. Because they actually, when I got from them, it was like they kind of wanted to be like, oh my God.
There was one at the end
who
was like, who actually said, no, guys, we have to acknowledge.
But then she also said, but that same lady said, but we're not affected negatively by it. There's white privilege, but black folk ain't affected by it.
Exactly.
That's what she said. That's as much as we got.
They don't see it. And we talked about this earlier. At the end of the day, some people are just booked. They're just in the book. Whatever's shared through history, that's what we know. That's why you see Martin Luther King coloring sheets every Black History Month, because the schools are still doing the same things. We have more Black history facts than Martin Luther King, and I think this is one of the beginning things that has to open the door and start to talk about out loud. Not just amongst ourselves, not just at the festivals for Black culture, but at all the museums, at all of the festivals, everywhere. Just like there's an Irish festival, we have to talk about our complete history so we can create a new future.
And just like the woman, one of the ladies was like, I worked hard to get where I am. So did
everybody else.
Laura over here, or
everybody's working
whoever
So
else.
did Jada, and so did Gam.
Exactly.
Yes.
And that's I want to just piggyback off of that too, because so white women, again, you can recognize sexism with an oppression from sexism with no issue, but you have extreme difficulty recognizing racism and oppression that comes from racism, and that's a problem.
Absolutely.
That's a problem.
Absolutely.
They don't feel it.
They
They're
don't
not
feel
affected.
it.
They don't care.
Yeah.
Some of them don't. Some of them don't feel it, and some of them don't care. But at their level of education,
and
their
success,
age, and the fact that they were running things in the Republican Party, I find it very hard to believe that you don't see it.
And this is the thing too, when people are willing, just like the girl at the open mic, we don't feel like expressing all the time how oppressed we've been and how hurtful it was and what my grandma went through and how we had to be on our best behavior with the police. Everybody doesn't want to always express that thought, but when someone does want to be open enough to share with you the oppression or how it's impacted their family, their life, the system, what have you, be willing to really receive it and want to hear it and work to identify some change. When people are wanting to share their story, don't dismiss them. Just open up. Like, really listen.
And that's what they did. They really dismissed what she was saying. They didn't want to listen. And the guy. Let's talk about the guy where he said voting was a privilege. Now,
I want to say real quick. We've had to apply for so many things and implement so many laws to make sure that whites follow and allow everyone the same privilege. We don't even know what's a privilege and what's an actual right. Like,
I can agree to that, and that's why she should have opened that conversation up. It should have went deeper because he feels that way for a reason. And then when he expressed, they should know how to spell their name. Now we're in 2019.
2019. You still think we can't read? But then minimizing us for it, and you kept the books from us.
Exactly, like we're in 2019, and you really sat right here and said they need to know.
How many bubbles in here? How many bubbles in here?
They should know their address. They should.
What example led you to believe that black people do not know how to read and write?
That just goes
Especially
that goes
their
in,
own name.
Exactly.
that goes into the institutional racism, that the inferiority that they feel that we have. And I don't want to say they, assuming everybody.
Right.
We know who they are. Y'all know who they are. Those are the people that I'm talking about,
Right.
who are open, and in some cases not so open, but they're here. They don't realize that they've been socialized this way. They're culturally conditioned to be this way, so that when you look at the news and you see two stories that are the same, or you look at the court and you see two things that are the same, one guy gets this and another guy gets that.
Yeah.
You know, we've all seen it.
True.
We all know what
Yeah.
it is. We express how we feel about it. I don't want to have the conversation about, well, look at the numbers. I know what I feel.
Right.
I know what I see.
Right.
I know that, you know, a 12-year-old kid gets killed in a park with a toy gun within 4 seconds, but somebody like Dylan Roof, who just shot up a church, gets taken away in handcuffs and taken to get something to eat. I mean, I don't know what that is if that's not white privilege.
I want to comment on that as well. I felt like, you know, I grew up, I was a cable kid, so I'm watching Brady Bunch and Golden Girls. My entire life I've had to watch white programming. And through watching that programming, I was able to identify our commonalities, our similarities, what we had in common, and how we're all the same, how they can be deceitful, how they can be kind. You know, you watch a few Lifetime specials, and you'll see that.
Absolutely.
But at the end of the day, white America has not always had to look us in the eye and see what was going on until Cosby Show and Different World, and then maybe Martin and Fresh Prince, those other episodes. But even when you look at those, they were perceptions that weren't completely accurate. And if that's the only association you've had or interaction you've had with Black America, it's already skewed. You know what I mean? So again, my perception on TV wasn't the full picture of white America, but I did take the time to acknowledge who they were, and I feel like it's not always equally given back.
Please stop saying white people. Yes, I have black friends. Oh, I grew up around
That
black
doesn't
people.
help. It doesn't-
I don't see.
Makes it
you
worse.
never even
I don't
named-
see them any different.
Yes, but you don't. If that's
Makes
your
it-
friend, what
makes
you
it
would have
worse.
said was, "Well, a great friend of mine name is such and such," and you know, you don't even name a person.
You don't even name
We
them.
all grew up around black people.
Right.
We all grew up around white people.
But in addition to that, if it was your friend, shouldn't the conversation go, man, my friend Marlene, she's black. We've done this together. We've done that. But when you say, I have black friends, name them. Identify them. What do you know about them? How much have you gotten to know them? It doesn't feel as authentic as if, other than you trying to give us another statistic about how acceptable you should be.
Yes. Oh, I've even heard in conversation. Yeah, you know, my good black friend over here.
There's always a
excuse
qualifier.
me.
There's a
Why
qualifier.
couldn't you just say my friend, a good friend of mine, or they say yes, a good friend of mine, Sam. Yes, he's black. It always has to come up somewhere where they're describing that friend. Like that's offensive. Why isn't that just your friend? When I say my friend Cara, I don't say my black friend over here named Cara.
I don't feel the need to
It's
specify
specified.
her race
Right.
or ethnicity.
Exactly. That's just my friend.
Because that's your friend.
Because that's your
Exactly.
friend.
So please stop doing that. We are tired
We don't
of
wanna- you don't
I'm
have
not
to do
racist
that.
because I have a black friend or I grew up around black people. I played in the park with black people. First of all, we don't know that.
Well, I
you
do-
could just be saying that.
I just think that we are all victims of cultural conditioning, and I think that cultural conditioning manifests itself differently in different groups of people. I think white privilege is so inherent in white people, and not all, because a lot get it. Like Tim Wise gets it, and Chelsea is trying to get it, and there are a lot of folks in that boat. But for those who don't get it, I just caution you to go back and look at the history, and look at the history of what this country is, and use some common sense. And at the end of the day, if you choose not to make any changes, that is your choice not to make changes. And if someone calls you a racist because of how you act, don't get all indignant about it. You know what I mean? It is what it is. For me, I found that the worst compliment you can give a racist person is to call them a racist. They don't want to be called that. That's the worst thing that you can call them. but at the same time, you just displayed racist tendencies.
Your characteristics
You
show.
know, so-
and if anything, instead of getting defensive, why not say, how can I be better?
Yeah.
And be willing to hear and receive that answer.
And grow.
Yeah.
This has been a great Red Table Talk. We appreciate us being invited in to share our perspectives and how we feel about it. I think you're going to see us all again somewhere. You never know where. But we appreciate it. And we thank you for watching Red Table Talk and Red Table Talk RVA. Well, thank you guys for joining us. We appreciate you.
Bye.
We're done. It's a wrap.
Okay.